Armenian traditional flatbread matnakash. My viewers remember another video I made for matnakash bread, and I just want to take a quick second and to thank everybody who tried and sent me messages, emails. Thank you everyone for trying, and just want to tell you that it means a lot when you try the recipe and let me know how it turns out, and that makes me work even harder and appreciate it. So that's that. And this one, I also have another recipe for matnakash. This will be a sourdough version, and because matnakash is not a sourdough bread in general, and it's a regular bread, okay? And that's why when making my sourdough starter, I didn't let it rise and get older, because the older it gets, the sour taste is more stronger and more enhanced. That's why I'll show you how I make my starter first of all. So I bake my matnakash usually with 6 or 7 days old starter, and this looks very excited now. It's all bubbly and nice. Let me quickly show you how I make the starters first of all. By the way, I would really suggest to go online, to go on YouTube and search a little bit about sourdough bread or making sourdough starter. It's really helpful, and you'll get more ideas and maybe come up with a easier and simpler, but this is really simple, let me tell you. So what I do, I be sure to take a small compact jar, not too big, not too large, glass jar or plastic probably, and I make mine with half a cup of filtered water, room temperature, and half a cup of all-purpose flour, and a tablespoon of wheat flour. So, and I let this sit about usually overnight. Just mix it well, cover with plastic and anywhere in your kitchen. Just mix it very well, and during 6 to 7 days, feed this starter a tablespoon of water, a tablespoon of all-purpose flour, twice a day, in the morning and before you go to sleep. Because this is living organism, it needs to be fed in order to grow and give you a good tasting bread. So what I do, I just simply cover it with plastic and set aside and to feed. If you miss a feeding, that's okay, but try not to miss too many feedings. It may get upset and don't grow. And if you notice your starter is starting to turn bluish or greenish color and smells weird, it means somehow it didn't grow. Restart again, discard and restart again. It never happened to me, but I heard it happen. So this will go on the side, and I'll be feeding that twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. A tablespoon water, a tablespoon all-purpose flour. On day 4, I also feed it with some wheat flour. If your starter gets super excited and starts to flowing out, discard a little bit and continue feeding. I even baked bread on day 4 because I didn't want it to discard the starter, so I used it. The bread turned out okay, not as with big bubbles or anything I was expecting, but it was still good bread, okay? And we love homemade bread, so it was a good food. Anyways, so what I do, I use about a cup of this starter. And what I also do, since I have leftover starter, I'm not gonna waste it. To that, I'm going to add about half a cup. It's like I'm restarting to feeding process again. And to this, I'm going to add half a cup of water, half a cup of flour, and set it aside to grow. Tomorrow, this will be as excited as today. So, because I bake almost daily or every other day, I never place my starter into fridge. So, if you're not going to use your starter, on day 6 or 7, place it in your fridge. Before you bake the bread, take it out, let it at room temperature at least 5 to 6 hours, feed it, and then use to make a bread. This may seem a little bit complicated, difficult, but it's not. As soon as you get the hang of it, you're good to go and you won't be having any difficulties. So this can go on the side. And for my 1 loaf of matnakash, I will use a cup of that starter, a cup of lukewarm filtered water, and of course I'll have salt, sugar, and extra flour added to it. This is here, and I add, because they say yeast, salt kills the yeast. When making sourdough version of the matnakash, I add salt almost at the end. So I'll show you how. Okay, so this is on the side. And this dough with sourdough starter may be a little sticky, maybe a little wet. Don't be tempted to add too much flour. So I added 1 cup, I'll mix it. Oh, I forgot to add my sugar. So I'll add the sugar. Yeast loves sugar, but doesn't like salt. And I'll add another cup of flour. And we'll start my mixer and let it spin about 10 to 15 minutes. It's very important. The kneading process is very, very important for sourdough breads. So I'll let this spin and add the salt while it's spinning. Alright, this looks perfect, and by perfect I mean it's elastic, and when you touch it, it's not very sticky. It's still sticky because it has sourdough starter, that's why, but that's normal. So on a lightly, very lightly floured surface, I'm going to knead this a few minutes only, and then place it into a greased bowl, set aside about up to 8 hours. Usually I make this overnight, and that's very necessary because this dough doesn't have any instant or any active yeast, so don't expect it to rise in an hour or less or more. It's gonna rise for a long time, and that makes that bread taste even better. So just a little bit more, a few strokes of kneading, if I can say that, like so, and minimum amount of flour. It's not very sticky, it's already quite stretchy and quite elastic, and be sure to have 1 of this. The dough can rest, as I mentioned, for many hours. As soon as you see it's almost doubled and tripled in size, you can start considering making that dough. So this will go to rest, and the one I did earlier, which means last night, is already, it's ready. And see how bubbly and how happy it looks. And okay, I can just remove the air. A couple of quick kneading strokes. I don't know, I came up with that, kneading strokes. I don't know if there is such a word. And what I do, I prepared my baking pan. And at this point, I'm going to start preheating my oven into 500 degrees. And very important, have one of your heaviest baking pans to get heated, because we're going to bake the bread on top of this thing. And if you have a pizza stone, that's even better. I don't have it. I always use my heavy duty aluminum baking pan, and it works just perfect. So I'm going to place this in the center and start my oven at 500 to preheat. About 20 minutes, because the dough will be rising another 20 minutes. So what I do, I just place on my baking pan lined with this mat. I forgot the name of this thing. Okay, I'll remember. Okay, Okay, I can't remember. If you don't have one of these, just line it with either parchment paper or I forgot another name, or foil. Okay. So that's that. And what I do to make it rise even faster, and I'm actually going to shape the dough into matnakash shape quickly. This is, as I mentioned, this is an Armenian flat bread. We call it matnakash because the word matnakash means pulled with fingers, because the shape of this bread, the shaping is with pulling lines with your fingers. So what you do, just gently stretch and press and stretch into oval shape. And I prepared the bowl with hot water, and I'm going to place my baking pan on top of that water so it rises even faster. You don't have to do that, it's just an extra step to make the rising of the bread faster. I shaped the dough into traditional matnakash shape, which is oval shaped, and then you'll see how I made this another oval circle and a couple of lines in the center, 4 or 3 lines. And what I'm going to do is place it on top of this bowl, which is filled with hot water. Okay, oops, and I'm going to cover this with my plastic. About 20 minutes. By that time your oven will be nice and hot, which we really need. Matnakash bakes in a hot oven, pretty hot. So I'll just cover this about 20 minutes. It's been resting for about 25 minutes now. If during that resting time matnakash loses its shape, the lines which I shaped earlier, just slightly reshape it again. Nothing will happen. Just want to make sure it has that traditional look. Okay, one more shaping, and my oven has been preheating for a while now. I'll just go to this side. When I prepared, you can do either one of them. Either have some ice cubes standing by, because we need to create steam inside the oven, so we have that nice and crispy crust, or have your spray bottle ready just to spray inside the oven. Okay, and my hands are oily and my baking pan is nice and hot now. So what we do, you take this out and gently place your silicone mat, I remember the word, silicone on top, and very carefully, it's gonna be super hot. We bake this in the center position. It goes in there, and either use the bottle spray to create the steam, or what I usually do, I have a couple of ice cubes in there and close the door very gently. That's it. This will bake 15 to 20 minutes. Matnakash is out of the oven, and allow at least 15 minutes to cool down before you slice the bread. And I don't know if you can see those nice bubbles. Of course, that sourdough bread, it's supposed to have all those air bubbles, and it tastes amazing, the best bread ever. So I will leave detailed recipe on my blog at heghineh.com. Check that out. Any questions, comments, I'm always happy to hear from you. Thank you everyone for watching. Like the video and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you very soon.